Well, welcome back to another week's analysis behind the news. Rather interesting article in yesterday's Sunday Times, New York Times that is, and it's about the Mayor Bloomberg of New York City and how he's very successful overseas getting things done, but in the city of New York, he's meeting opposition. You may recall that he's the mayor that wanted to limit what the size that you could order for your soda at any local fast food place, that sort of thing. That 16 ounces was just a little bit too much for anybody to be drinking. So thankfully this fellow, he's been knocked down from that idea, but he's got other ideas. Let me read you a couple of paragraphs out of this article, for instance. The roads may soon teem with miles of new bike lanes, made possible by Michael Bloomberg in Turkey. High-capacity buses zip through exclusive traffic corridors, part of Bloomberg's bet that better public transport options will discourage private car use in Brazil and Mexico. And in Egypt, between the uprising and the streets, speed tracking cameras are hung along the ring road of Cairo. They resemble the ones expected to reach New York City eventually under a bill approved in Albany last month. And so what's happening is that what they're trying to do is to spy on you at every intersection, trying to get you into buses and out of your cars, trying to get you on bicycles and out of your cars. And they're able to put these lanes in, they're able to put these for the bikes, for the buses, etc., because in these other countries, they don't have the property rights in the Constitution like we have in the United States. You see, these things bog down in the United States because as bad as it is relative to the Constitution being attacked, being ignored, property rights being attacked, being ignored, there's still the vestiges of these things left in the United States that slow some of this stuff down. And so it's a lot easier to get things done in socialist countries where they don't have property rights. You know, people really don't understand the basis of our government in the United States and its very foundation on private property rights. Now, it's not in the Bill of Rights. Now, the reason that the property rights are not in the Bill of Rights is because our forefathers didn't even contemplate the day when property rights weren't a given, a gimme, as they say today. Property rights are very, very important to freedom. That's how you invest your wealth. It's how you can stay on your property and farm and do the things that you want to. For instance, the same page, it's got an article on moving all these millions of Chinese off of their farms into the major cities to where they will no longer allow them to live on farms. Now, these people have lived on these farms for centuries. Now, all of a sudden, they just come along and say, well, you don't own this. This is all government property, and now we're moving you into the city. It's basically the Chinese version of Agenda 21, where they're trying to get everybody from the rural areas to live in cities so that they can control them easier. It's more elaborate. I suggest you go to the Agenda 21 page that we have on jbs.org and take a look at what they're trying to do with Agenda 21. What they're doing in China relative to moving these people off the property into major cities is what they're trying to do here. They haven't gotten that far yet. Again, we still have private property rights, but they're trying and they're moving in that direction. If we form a merger, a partnership is the way they're putting it, with the European Union, a lot of our property rights will be eroded into European versions of property rights, which is basically you get the rent from the government, and that's the way it is. I know that there are private properties all over Germany and England and so on and so forth, but these are shrinking gradually, more and more, to where the government can control you if you don't own your own property. And that's what's going on. Speaking of Egypt, by the way, we see now that the Christians in Egypt are being attacked. They're targets of retribution as a result of this takeover by the military. And it's a very interesting thing in that regard, because you think that this is a military junta and a military coup, and you'd be right, except they've appointed Now, how's that for a democracy? They've appointed the prime minister of Egypt taken Morsi out and put this guy in. Now, I was no fan of Morsi, don't get me wrong on this. It sort of boils down to this. Do you like our dictator or their dictator? That's really what it is. There's not much difference between the two except what side they happen to be volunteered for. It's sort of like kids out on a back lot choosing up sides for a baseball or a football game. And, you're on this team or you're on that team, but you're both working on the same thing. You're working by the same rules and everything else. It's just a matter of who runs the teams. And here they've appointed this new guy, Hassan el-Bablawi, a founding member of the Social Democrat Party, according to the New York Times. But not to worry, this man is a liberal economist. Well, let's discuss for a moment just how liberal this man is. He founded the Social Democratic Party of Egypt. It was admitted to the Socialist Internationale as an affiliate in 2012. It was accepted into the Party of European Socialists in 2013. That's how liberal this guy is. The symbol that they use is the standard clenched fist symbol that all the socialists are using lately. The only difference is that in its hand, it's got a lotus. It's the same standard clenched fist, but it's got a lotus sticking out, and the lotus has got the Egyptian national colors. Also, what we've seen is that many of these generals that were kicked out by Morsi were trained by Soviets. The new government was put in by the generals that were American trained. It gets very confusing after a while. By the way, this new leader of Egypt was Under Secretary General of the United Nations between 1995 and the year 2000. So here he's found a socialist party that's accepted into the Socialist Internationale, and somehow or another he's a liberal economist who believes in a free market for Egypt. Now, does that compute? You can't have it both ways. I guess they figure that we're dumb if we don't understand what the Social Democratic Party of Egypt really means. Go online, look it up, you'll find out very quickly it's a socialist party. So don't talk to me about free market in Egypt. It doesn't exist under this guy. So at any rate, another thing that's happening, there's a number of treaties being negotiated right now. One in particular between the United States and China to open up investment in both countries. Now, the individuals who work for the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace think this is a great idea, and we're going to get benefits out of it. The Chinese will get benefits out of it. What they don't tell you in this article is that when we go over to invest in China, we go over as individuals. What's our motivation for doing it? Profit. So we don't have an agenda. We're just over there trying to make money, right? But when China comes here, they have an agenda because it's all controlled by the Chinese Communist government. Now, I know there's some Nabu rich that have been created, these sudden millionaires, just like in Russia, who are out investing all over the place, and it makes it look as though it's private enterprise out of China. But these people are controlled just like the millionaires are controlled in Russia. Step a little out of line, you go to prison, and everything goes into Putin's pocket. So that's the way they do things in China as well. So it's going to have an agenda when they come and invest in the United States. Now, what they're trying to do, they're seriously talking about this, is to take the foreign exchange reserves that the Chinese hold, approximately $3.4 trillion, and turn them into real assets in the United States. That's a lot of money. Can you imagine them coming in with $3.4 trillion and starting to buy up factories in your area, businesses in your area, malls in your area, farmland in your area, pig farms, chicken farms, etc., etc.? Now then, think about this, think it through. What will happen as influence from the Chinese Communist government on those employees, on that local government, that tax base? They have an agenda, keep in mind. And the agenda is not profit. It includes profit, but it is not just profit. It's socialism. It's communism. And we're negotiating so that the Chinese can come in and invest in the United States. And it will not be pretty if they come in and invest at the levels that they're talking about. Lastly, I want to talk about hospitals prescribe big data to track doctors at work. Now they're putting in systems to track doctors at the hospitals. And what they're doing is that ultimately will happen is they're trying to find out the effectiveness and efficiency of the medical staff, so that every medical condition will have a code, every patient an ID number, every procedure a planned and arbitrary cost and income number from that procedure. And that's how they are going to be evaluating doctors from now on, particularly since the implementation of ObamaCare. Our hospitals are going to become factories rather than areas of hospice. This is very dangerous. So this is one of the results of socialized medicine. Until next week, we'll see you then.